What is infinite banking? Most of the bros on the internet will overcomplicate the shit out of the answer to this question. They will tell you things like, well, you get to be your own banker. Now, I don't know about you, but I have zero interest in being a banker. Like, I don't want to wear the suit. I don't want to work in a bank. I don't want to have to do all the shit that bankers do. I don't want to have to like learn all the rules that they learn. Man, I went into a bank and like sat down and had a meeting with a banker on a hot day. And there was like a beautiful breeze outside. I'm like, too bad you can't open this window. And he was like, yeah, I work in a bank. Like, none of the windows open. I'm like, oh my God, I hadn't even considered that. Like, he had this office with all these pretty windows and none of them opened. So, anyway, I don't want to be a banker. Other bros on the internet will be like, well, you get to use whole life insurance that's structured this special way. So it dials up the cash value and it dials down the death benefit and it creates this tax haven of money that you have full access to and that you can loan against. And honestly, that answer sounds complicated AF. I'm not saying that these answers aren't true. I'm just recognizing, and this is as someone who practices infinite banking, the places where even I haven't used my infinite banks as well as I could have because the whole thing seemed so freaking complicated that, to be honest, like I didn't fully get it. And so I didn't know how to use the power of it. So my goal is to explain infinite banking far more simply and focus on what it actually accomplishes and why that matters more than the technicalities of how it's done. Okay. So, the biggest issue with growing wealth is that it can be slow. And the reason that it can be slow is because your money can only do one thing at a time. So if you need to spend $1,000 on a car repair, then that's $1,000 that isn't going into your savings account, that isn't being invested, right? The money you're spending isn't being saved. The money you're saving isn't being spent. That makes perfect logical sense, right? I think we can all agree to that. I think we've all had that experience where your money is either being spent or it's being saved. It's either being invested or it's being used, and it's not doing both at the same time. Well, the power of infinite banking is that it gets your money to do three things all at the same time. As a mama, we all know that if we could clone ourselves and have three versions of ourselves, one that's driving a kid to an activity, one that's driving another kid while one's home cooking and cleaning, like we would get so much more done if we could clone ourselves and have three of us doing something. We'd be crazy productive. Now, the same is true for our money. If our money could be in multiple places at once, it would grow faster, right? I think that's like an obvious kind of intuitive statement. And yet we don't think it's possible because we don't understand um, that there, are things that have been put in place that are legal and that can be leveraged to make this happen. And so essentially, what an infinite bank does, the reason that it gets your money doing three things at once, is that you put your money into your infinite bank, and the first thing happens your money grows and it gets a guaranteed return. So, unlike the stock market or many, many other things that you can do with your money to try and get it to grow, it gets a guaranteed compound interest inside of your infinite bank. So that's the first thing that your money is doing for you when it's in an infinite bank. Number two, it's providing a guaranteed death benefit. So it's setting up future generations to have far more wealth than what you did. So you get to live your life, and when you're gone, your children or people that you care about are going to inherit a lot of money. The third thing that your infinite bank does is it gives you access to all of the money that's in there. So you can still draw against that money, move it from your infinite bank into your savings account where you could use it, to buy a car or as a down payment for a house or to invest in a house that you're going to fix up and flip. You don't want to use it and spend it. That's like the one rule. You don't just like want to spend it on lifestyle stuff, but you can pull the money out of your infinite bank and in invest it in some sort of like tangible asset or investment, or use it in the way that you would have used a loan from the bank. So like you could buy a car using money from your infinite bank instead of going to the bank for a loan. And then eventually you'll pay that money back, right? But while that money isn't in your infinite bank, the money is still growing with guaranteed interest as though it's there, and it's still providing that death benefit. And then it's also doing the third thing, which is helping you buy that car or invest in more real estate or whatever other kind of investment you need to do. So now all of a sudden your money is doing three things at once. When you do that, naturally, the speed at which you accumulate wealth goes up tremendously. And there are so many other benefits too, like I could get really emotional about generational wealth and building that and like creating an inheritance for my kids and my kids' kids and that kind of thing. Um, but I also just want to acknowledge that one of the biggest things that never, ever, ever gets addressed when talking about infinite banking is money wounds and healing your relationship with money. And so, for many people, the idea of having a little bit more complexity in their financial system and having access to more money, having money that they've put aside over here, but that they can also take from and spend it over here, that can feel scary because you might feel like, what if I squander it? What if I uh, don't stick to the plan? What if I'm not disciplined enough? What if I actually create more debt because I do this the wrong way, or I can't control my impulses? And honestly, that is so valid and should be talked about and should be addressed. And no one in the financial services industry wants to address that. Okay. When I was setting up my infinite banks, the guy I was working with was just like, you just have to be an honest banker. I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? And also, I'm not a banker. So, like, none of that even resonated. And it's like, uh, you know, I've never had a huge problem with debt, but let's say that I was someone who had gotten myself into some significant debt in the past. Just telling me, like, well, you just have to be honest, banker. You always just have to pay yourself back with interest. It's like, how does that actually fix the underlying issue that caused me to go into debt in the first place, right? We're humans. We make emotional decisions and we justify it with logic. And yet the financial services industry wants to just approach everything from a very logical perspective and not address the emotional piece of it. And so I really think that part of the reason that I'm here is to sort of bridge these worlds and bridge these concepts and talk about the thing that no one's talking about. Like the elephant in the room with this system is that uh, there has to be some self trust. There also needs to be some accountability. And that can just be accountability with yourself, or it can be accountability with a partner, a wealth strategist like me that like helps you get this stuff set up. And then we kind of put parameters in place and have some check-ins and everything. But it's like, I think when that doesn't get addressed, it can make these systems feel really complex and really scary. And then often they're avoided by the people who could benefit the most. And my mission is to really help get more wealth in the hands of heart-centered humans, people who are doing great work in the world, who have a soul mission, who want to leave this planet a better place than they found it, and are doing really cool work and have really great gifts to share. And unfortunately, those kinds of people are typically not leveraging the legal wealth loopholes that exist in the United States. I don't know about other countries, so let me just clarify that. But these legal wealth loopholes that exist in the United States, they're not leveraging them because either they don't know about it or they have unhealed money wounds that have gotten in the way of them even considering taking action on it. So, all that to be said, and PS, none of this is financial advice. This is just for informational purposes only. Even if I'm telling you what I would do with my money, it's not necessarily what you would or should do with your money. But if you want to have a conversation, if you want to better understand this concept and see how it could work for you based on your current income, based on your wealth goals, just slide into my DMs, message me, and we can have a chat about it. Um, these these concepts are good to learn about on the internet, but then they take a more nuanced conversation where we can apply it to you and your actual situation, in order for it to really land and really make sense and for you to really see the power of it. Um, and I really believe in using your actual numbers. It's like it's one thing when it's a concept, it's another thing when it's like, oh, this is how much I make, this is how much I spend, and here are the ways that we can accelerate that and then actually see it on paper. That's when it really becomes real for me. So if that's something that you want to do for yourself, reach out and I'd be happy to chat. Otherwise, I hope you learned something today about infinite banking. I hope that this video simplified an otherwise complex conversation, so that you can decide if it's something that you want to explore further.